Good evening and welcome to the GPS-39 launch webcast. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket is currently awaiting liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Hello everyone, my name is Zachary Lupin and I'm an avionics supply chain engineer here at SpaceX. Tonight we'll be taking one of the U.S. Space Force's most advanced GPS satellites to orbit, GPS-3 SV09. Falcon 9 launched 11 national security missions back in 2025, and tonight's launch will be our second national security mission of this year, with several more on this year's manifest for the NRO, the Space Force, and the Space Development Agency. GPS-39 is Falcon 9's third accelerated mission for the U.S. Space Force. Back in December of 2024, Falcon 9 launched the Rapid Response Trailblazer 1, which demonstrated U.S. capabilities to rapidly deploy national security satellites. And following that mission in May of 2025, we launched a second accelerated mission with GPS-37, preparing that satellite for launch in less than 3 months. Now, this type of mission typically requires a 2-year planning cycle, so the condensed turnaround time here is considerable. After tonight's mission, 9 of the 10 GPS-3 satellites will have been launched, with Falcon 9 launching but one of them. Now, here's an image of the GPS-39 satellite that teams encapsulated in Falcon 9's fairing ahead of arriving at hangar at Slick 40 in Florida last week. Now, this mission also marks the fastest national security space launch turnaround, with launch occurring just 41 days after we were awarded the contract, a new record for accelerated launch capabilities. As for the launch vehicle, this will be the fifth flight for the Falcon 9 booster supporting this mission, after launching KF-01, which deployed 24 Internet constellation satellites for Amazon, IMAP, a NASA mission to map the boundaries of the heliosphere, a recent national security mission NROL-77, and one Starlink mission. At T-minus 7 minutes and 20 seconds, the range is green, and we are on track for an on-time liftoff at 11:53 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, if for any reason we are unable to launch today, a backup opportunity is available tomorrow at 11:34 p.m. Eastern Time. But for now, weather is good, with a less than 5% possibility of launch weather constraints. So with that, let's meet the rocket on the pad. The Falcon 9 rocket supporting today's mission is a 2-stage rocket designed for the reliable and safe transportation of satellites, cargo, and people. Starting from the very top of the rocket, we have the payload fairing. The fairing is a protective shell that houses all the payloads, shielding them from aerodynamic heating until the vehicle is outside the Earth's atmosphere. And the shape of the fairing contributes to Falcon 9's overall efficiency, helping to reduce drag during the rocket's ascent. Once in space, those fairing halves separate and fall back to Earth, where they'll be recovered by one of our recovery vessels to be refurbished and reused on later flights. And speaking of which, both fairing halves on today's mission.
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
And good call out there for RP1 load. And speaking of which, both fairing halves on today's mission are flight proven, with both sides flying for their second time tonight. Right below the fairing is Falcon 9's second stage, which possesses a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC, with a larger engine nozzle optimized for operating in vacuum. And below the second stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage, which is where that MVAC engine is housed. And below that, we have the first stage, or booster, that is fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of liquid oxygen and RP1. Now, the first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle and has 9 Merlin M1D engines at the bottom, which generate more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust. And as I mentioned earlier, the first stage supporting today's mission will be making its 5th flight today. Now, about 2.5 minutes into flight, the first and second stages will separate, and the booster will make its way back to Earth to land on our drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas, which is currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. At T-minus 5 minutes and 18 seconds, weather continues to look favorable, and teams are tracking no issues. Now, coming up next in the countdown, the Transporter Erector, or TE, will begin to retract away from Falcon 9. The TE is that large truss structure you see standing next to the vehicle.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And good call out there. That TE is that large truss structure next to the rocket. It's hinged at the base and connected to the launch mount beneath the first stage. First, we'll see the clamp arms open around the second stage, and then the TE will begin to pivot back, slowly swinging away from the rocket. We should be seeing those clamp arms opening in just under 20 seconds from now. Now, those clamp arms help stabilize the second stage during fueling and prevent movement.
Strong back retract has started.
And good call out there for strong back retract. Those clamp arms help stabilize the second stage during fueling and prevent movement in high winds. And once they're open, the rocket will be fully free at the top, but will still be held down at the base. And you can see those clamp arms opening around the top of the second stage there on your screen. Now you may also hear the TE called out as the strong back, though strong back is just one of the components of the TE. And it does a lot of heavy lifting as it rolls Falcon 9 out onto the pad, raises it vertical, and stays connected to the rocket through the final seconds before launch. It provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between ground systems and the vehicle. And with those clamp arms fully open, we can now see the strong back reclining away from Falcon. Now at this stage in the count, both stages are nearly fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of propellant. And that includes Rocket Propellant 1, or RP1, a highly refined kerosene, and liquid oxygen, or LOX, chilled to roughly 300 degrees below zero. Now, the first stage will finish loading propellant at around the T-3 minute mark, and the second stage will finish up about a minute later.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And there's that call out for completion of Stage 1 LOX loading. Now, looking ahead in the count, at the T-60 second mark, Falcon 9 will enter startup. And at that point, the rocket's onboard flight computers will take over. And from there on out, the countdown will be fully autonomous. And then just inside of T-2 seconds, the 9 Merlin 1D engines will ignite. And once they're at full power, Falcon 9 will lift off from the pad and begin its climb to orbit. At T-2 minutes and 30 seconds, the range continues to be green, payload remains healthy, and the team is still tracking no issues. Coming up shortly, we should be hearing that call out for LOX loading completion on the second stage.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And there's that call out for Stage 2 LOX loading completion. Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of RP1 and LOX. Now, coming up shortly, we'll hear that call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. As a reminder, that is the point in the count when the autonomous flight computers will take over the launch count.
Launch closeouts.
And good call out there. It'll be at that point that the autonomous flight computers will take over the launch countdown and both stages will pressurize for launch. Afterwards, we will then wait for the final go, no-go from the launch director for today's mission. So we should be hearing that call out for Falcon 9 startup in just about 10 seconds from now.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Exciting news there that Falcon 9 is in startup. We're now just waiting for that final go, no-go from the launch director for today's mission.
Mission directors, go for launch.
And there you heard it, the LD is go for tonight's mission. So let's sit back and watch as Falcon 9 takes the GPS 39 satellite to space.
T-30 seconds. T-15 seconds. T-10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go GPS 39. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Chamber pressure nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Now, in just a few moments, we'll be throttling down the engines in preparation for Max Q, which stands for Maximum Aerodynamic Pressure.
Falcon 9 power and telemetry are nominal.
And good call out there for nominal telemetry. The Max Q is the point at which the rocket experiences the greatest amount of stress as it ascends through the Earth's atmosphere. Now, the vehicle is also pitching downrange.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
When the vehicle is pitching downrange to go from vertical to horizontal, the first stage is performing a maneuver known as a gravity turn. Now, the booster does this by gimbaling its engines very slightly so that the vehicle slowly becomes
Max
horizontal.
Q.
And there's that call out for Max Q. Now, the rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. And you can track our progress to orbit by watching the left corner of your display that's showing the vehicle's velocity and altitude. Now,
MVAC, chill.
Now, coming up next, we're going to have several events happening in rapid succession, and we should hear all of these called out by Mission Control, starting with main engine cutoff, or MECO, then stage separation, and then SES-1. MECO is where we shut down all 9 M1D engines on the first stage, followed by stage separation, which is where the first and second stages of Falcon separate from one another, and second engine start 1, or SES-1, is when we light the MVAC engine on the second stage for the first time. So keep an eye out for these events happening back-to-back just about 20 seconds from now.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
And there we heard confirmation of that series of events, which again were MECO, followed by stage separation, and then SES-1. Now, coming up shortly will be fairing separation. Once the vehicle reaches the vacuum of space, the payload fairings are...
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
And good call out there. Once the vehicle reaches the vacuum of space, the payload fairings are no longer needed and will be jettisoned away. And as mentioned earlier, we'll be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again once they fall back to Earth. As a reminder, both fairing halves are flying for their second time tonight. We're expecting that call out for fairing separation in just under 10 seconds from now.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there you have it, confirmation of fairing separation and a beautiful view of the GPS-39 satellite. Now, we're still in the first MVAC burn on the second stage, and this burn should last for another few minutes. Now, the next milestone coming up will be the first stage entry burn in about 2 minutes from now. Now, today, Falcon 9 is performing 2 burns in order to land. The first burn, known as the entry burn, will slow down the vehicle before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. And without this burn, we'd only be using the atmospheric drag to slow down Falcon 9, which would add extra stress to the vehicle. Following that entry burn, shortly thereafter, the booster will initiate the landing burn, which will slow the vehicle down before touching down on our drone ship. Now, when Falcon 9 fires up the center M1D engine for re-entry, the vehicle will be flying through Merlin's exhaust, which deposits a layer of soot onto the vehicle's surface. As a given booster becomes more and more flight-proven, that soot layer will build up more and more on the surface of the rocket.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Now, as the booster is descending back to Earth, Falcon 9 will be using its 4 titanium hypersonic grid fins positioned near the top of the first stage to steer the vehicle towards its landing point. And from time to time, when the booster is on screen, you may also see white puffs coming from the booster, and those are cold nitrogen gas bursts, which will help with attitude control. And we've got about 30 seconds until that entry burn starts. And in addition to the camera view lighting up, you can also follow the relight of the engines via the graphics at the bottom of your screen. Should be hearing that call out for entry burn in just about 5 seconds from now.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's confirmation of entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. Now this burn is set to last about 30 seconds and again is slowing down